much all it means.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. Okay, so you watched that clip of Alan Moore there, being Alan Moore. Okay, so there's a few things he's saying there, and you got to kind of you got to pull a bunch of them out like little threads. So first off, he's complaining about the term graphic novel and what it should mean, what it really means. Then he's also complaining about kind of the format of the graphic novel and what goes inside of it, and is it truly a new comic, or what is going on there. And then he's also complaining about, and this is a more vague complaint about, like, adults who are still reading kind of, comics for kids, but trying to make themselves feel better about it by calling it something serious, like graphic novel, which sounds more adult than comic book, but they're still reading, Arrested Development level, silly pants characters. And, they really should grow up and start reading something else. So you got a couple different plots going on in this this clip from Alan Moore. So let's go through them kind of one by one, because if you try and tackle them all at once, it's just a weird soup. So first of all, the idea that graphic novels are that word is bad, and to that I say, whatever, sure. Why, pick your poison. It's kind of like how I felt. I got in a big argument over the word comics with Eric Larson. And Eric Larson was trying to make the point that comics are comedians who are doing, stand-up routines, and comic books he doesn't really like, because it was like comedy books was what was his perspective. And he liked funny books, I think, or comics with an X. And it was one of those weird conversations where I felt like he was arguing because he was drunk or high at the time, and not actually know what he was talking about, but whatever. I'm not married to any of this. You could call it, thing I'm going to pick up and read and look at, and I really don't care. The word doesn't mean much to me. In some ways, it's like the argument of comics should only be delivered to comic shops on a Wednesday. It's like this is a weird thing to argue about in my mind. I don't really care. Do I have a good product to sell? Cool. Is it enjoyable to read it? Cool. That's all I got, right? I don't know what to do after that. Anyway, so you could call it whatever you want. He's making some good points about, it's not particularly graphic, and it's definitely not a novel, and you should read a book if you want a novel. And this feels like, I don't know, this feels like splitting hairs kind of argument, I guess. I fail to see why anyone gives a shit too much about really having a big fight over this. It just feels like you're being pissy for no apparent reason. Then there's the second point of, what is it, like She-Hulk is 12 issues of She-Hulk stapled together into one book, and that's not a graphic novel. And that I agree with. You can call it a trade paperback. You can call it a number of things, but I do think that the content has gotten pretty loose, whether it's just a bunch of random comics stuffed together and put in something. I mean, this is where there is a better way to consume, many volumes of comics all at once in one place. And that frankly, even though a lot of you will hate this, is digital. You even an omnibus. I mean, I have several omnibuses at home. They're pretty, hardcover, lots of pages, cute, love it. But they're not, that's not really how you want to read anything. You want to sit down with this 15-pound hardcover book on your lap and try and, get through the 1960s Avengers comic. There's a certain aspect to this, which is, sure. I mean, I don't know. I find it all a little bit absurd, quite frankly. And so I do think that there is people playing fast and loose a little bit with the nature of what a comic book is, or a collection is, or a trade paperback is. In my mind, the reason why Dark Phoenix Saga was good is that you got the entire kind of complete end-to-end story in one spot. But I'll be quick to point out, if you bought the Dark Phoenix Saga, if you actually bought that trade paperback, it often reprinted like one of the issues of the Proteus saga, which led into it, and it didn't make a whole fucking amount of sense, and it didn't really work as a standalone story because there's all this other stuff going on in it. To me, that's where none of this stuff technically works terribly well, but there you go. And then you get to the bulk of at least what I'm kind of talk about today, which is, are comics made for kids? And if you're not a kid, why are you reading comics? Which is kind of Alan Moore's point of, you shouldn't be reading comics. You shouldn't be, you should have grown up by now and moved into other things. And why are the publishers still pretending to placate or play to an audience that is young, that is not, why? Why is that still something that you're doing? Why don't these kids grow up and get a life and pay attention to grown-up things? And this is something that I hear a decent amount in comics, where, it's like, hey, these comics aren't for you. They're for kids. Well, I got news for you. I got 2 kids who, in theory, are prime demographic, suspects for people who should be enjoying this shit, and they do not. They like, again, I have to put a gun to my daughter's head in order to get her to read a comic, in a lot of cases, from modern Marvel. If the comics are meant for her, I got news for you. You're failing. You're not failing a little bit. You're failing a lot. They're not landing for that audience. And I think I dispute kind of Alan Moore's general, concept in general, which is, whatever you consume is up to you. I don't really care if you're young, old, whatever. I think there's a correlation that's going on here that's not accurate. Like I agree, by the way, the comic reader who is reading Spider-Man and doesn't like that Spider-Man isn't fucking Black Cat anymore, and is going to go and write mail and like make a cosplay outfit and like go on the internet and make a complete ass out of themselves. That is crazy behavior. That person's a weirdo. No mistake about it. That is some that person is wrong. But if you are a grown adult, if you're my age and you're picking up Spider-Man and the Avengers because you like those comics and you just want to read them, quite bluntly, that's kind of your fucking business, and that's completely okay. It should be your business. I think when I hear this stuff of like, well, you shouldn't be reading a comic anyway, you're a grown adult. Why? Why are we relating what media we consume to if we're mature or not? We're mature if we act mature. We're mature if we, take responsibility for our lives. We pay our bills, and we raise our kids. We do all that kind of stuff. That's maturity. Immaturity is, you consume these things and you act like a goddamn lunatic. That's immaturity. And I absolutely do see a lot of that in comic books. I do see a lot of people. I mean, look, if you look at the X Twitter or the XX, the X-Men community, X-Men fans on Twitter, they're a bunch of immature assholes. A lot of them. They go kind of hardcore, toxic, insane when they don't get what they want. I'm not a big fan of that AIPT or app site. I think that they frequently feed a lot of that kind of stuff. It has the feeling of a group that has an attitude of we don't like toxic fandom. There's no place for you. P.S. We are absolutely going to throw a ridiculous tantrum if we don't get Leah Williams doing another X Factor book because she kissed up to us and went on our show at one point, and so we're obligated to say she's the best writer ever, and if you don't put her on, we're going to just write angry articles about it. I mean, there's like toxic fandom comes in a lot of different forms. That's definitely one of them. But, at the end of the day, I think whether you're a mature fan or not is really based on your actions, not based on your consume. I think if you are a grown-ass man reading Spider-Man, there's nothing wrong with that. if you're a grown-ass man reading Spider-Man and, going on live stream in costume and, screaming at the camera and throwing things, you might have a problem on your hands. That's the difference. That is, fundamentally where we go from you are a man-child or woman-child to you're a responsible adult who just doesn't like what you're reading. Every now and then somebody sends me a note going, well, Perch, if you didn't, you're saying all this like you should be more, chill about these things. But on the other hand, you've got 1,000+ videos talking about this stuff. You're right. I do have 1,000+ videos because as you could tell right now, maybe I am driving. This is my entertainment while driving. I'm either doing this or I'm listening to the top 40 pop music on the goddamn radio and I can't do it anymore. So I'm doing this and I'm chatting with you. But at no point am I ranting and raving and acting like a lunatic because I'm not getting what I want in my comics, the comics. To me, the solution to I don't like what I'm reading is don't buy. Stop purchasing it. That is a wonderful antidote to a lot of ills. And we talked a lot about, you get wrapped up in a character and everything else. But I would hope that most of you recognize a profound difference between, hey, I'm upset because Spider-Man is, not married to MJ anymore. And I'm upset because Spider-Man's not married to MJ anymore. So I'm going to go to the New York Comic Con. I'm going to stand outside of it. And I'm going to, scream obscenities in my handmade Spider-Man outfit. And I'm going to live stream it and talk about how all the people at Marvel should be dead. Hopefully you recognize the difference between A and B. So two very, very different worlds. One is, a fan who is, invested in a property and likes and dislikes things that happen. And the other is a fan addict, somebody who is not just invested, but, is completely unhinged, untethered from reality, which is a little bit what you get when you have people who are saying, this comic creator can't be part of what I'm doing. This one artist, John Byrne, said something mean on Facebook, and therefore he can't ever be part of anything I read ever again. I mean, like that. I hope most of you can see the difference between those two standpoints. They're very, very different. But anyway, so back to Alan Moore. I mean, he has a point with a lot of the graphic novel stuff and everything else. I mean, he's not on the surface wrong. But on the other hand, some of it feels like it's not petty exactly. Just it's hard to understand the point. Like I'm angry because people the comic books are still putting out youthful trite that man-child babies are reading. I mean, look, Alan Moore, you're worshiping a weird snake god and you got a beard that's out of control. I mean, do we want to really throw stones about who's the lunatic here? I respect a lot of what Alan Moore has done. I think he's written some enjoyable, entertaining stories that I enjoyed in my 20s, that I've enjoyed in my 40s. And I don't really care. To me, that's it. That's all there is to it. I don't need to hold up Alan Moore as the greatest creator of art of all time. I don't need to talk about Alan Moore's novels and say I've reached a certain age where all I can talk about are his books versus his comics. And another reason I don't talk about his books is because I haven't read them, because quite bluntly, very few people have, because nobody really cares about that stuff. I think, you like what you like everything else. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't write it off as being, kiddie stuff. And, don't act like a lunatic. It's not that hard. As human beings, we actually can follow multiple tracks at once. And one of them is you can like something without losing your shit about it. And if you do lose your shit on it, then, you're probably not ready for grown-up life. Quite bluntly, you're just, maybe you need to, you're just going to need to figure out kind of your world a little bit. But the vast majority of older people who read comics, I hate this war on them. Either they're so old that they're about to die any second, or they shouldn't be reading this stuff in the first place because it was designed for kids and now they're in their 40s and they have no business reading it. It's like, you know what? Fuck off. You don't get a pick who comes into your restaurant and eat. You have to do a good job serving them. You have to do you have to put your best foot forward. You don't get to say, hey, I opened a Mexican restaurant and I am wanting to appeal to ages 25 to 35 because that's the cool demographic that I want to appeal to. And, that's it. And if you come in and you're older than that, you're really not the audience I want. So you don't got to be rude and pissy to you until you leave. You can do that, but you're going to go out of business. And also, you're a prick. People like things for a lot of different reasons. Do I think that the comic publishers are scamming people and they just pick up a bunch of random comics and shove them in a trade paperback and call it a graphic novel? Do I think that, the idea of soliciting an original graphic novel that's just 48 random pages in a story and you're wanting to charge $25 for it is, it's a scam. The person is milking you for money. It's a grift. But at the same time, the person in control of your wallet is you. It's none of my business what you spend your money on. I think the whole world of comics and everything else would be a lot more healthy if more people absorb that fact. It's none of your fucking business what people spend their money on. If they want to buy it, they can buy it. It's their dollar, literally. So therefore, leave it alone. Like, buy, subscribe, don't. It's on you. And why people like things that they like, I don't know. And quite bluntly, outside of being a retailer and trying to figure out how to properly market stuff to people, what do I care? I don't need to know why you like something or don't like something. I just need to know how to give you good service. Provide you with something you actually want to buy. Make sure that when you come in with money, you've got a place to spend it. That's my business. Anyway, I like Alan Moore. He's produced some great work. He clearly has a lot of bitterness about the industry. Look, here's the part where I'm very cynical. Because on one hand, you want to say, well, here's somebody who was kind of screwed over by some of the publishers, and he's got a right to kind of have his opinion and everything else. And I mean, sure he does. At the same time, he needs to kind of recognize that he wrote these comics that people loved. He can be bitter about that because he doesn't have the money, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway, thanks for listening.